Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and whether you're watching live or archived, welcome to episode number 88 of Nautel Transmission Talk Tuesday. You'll notice I didn't look, but Ed told me the number less than a minute ago, so I had a chance. It sunk in, it stayed. I'm your host, Jeff Welton. Today we're getting a little out of radio and a little into everything related to broadcast. We're talking about the SBE. As always, I try to find somebody smarter than me to talk about this stuff with. So I've got Vice President-elect Kevin Trueblood. And Kevin, welcome. Thanks for being here.
That's so nice of you to call me smarter than you, Jeff.
Look,
Because that's a stretch.
my 14-year-old will tell you it doesn't take much. So, that bar's not as high as you might think.
Fair enough.
Let's see. Elaine's already in the comments telling she hopes Hurricane Lee is only small when it gets here. And we were talking about that before. So we do have a hurricane coming up. Kevin's no stranger to those, being in Florida. And we don't worry about it a whole lot because it's a week away and a lot can change in a week. Doesn't mean the hatches won't be battened, so to speak. But yeah, we'll just hold off until we know where it's going before we get too worried about it. So talking about SBE, and before we do that, let's do the mandatory housekeeping stuff. And Kevin, you're no stranger to TTTs. We had you on for the IT month earlier this year. Was it this year or last year?
I think it was last year.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
February 2020.
Oh, there you go.
So last year,
doesn't know either.
3 years ago, same difference.
And by the way, shout out to Mr. Disembodied Voice, Ed Sylvester. He's the guy that keeps me honest and on my toes. And sometimes that's a bigger task than you might imagine. So mandatory housekeeping, we do try to make these interactive. As I said, Elaine's already found the question panel, but if you've got a question, comment, criticisms, concern, type it in. We're going to rely a lot on feedback for this. I warned Kevin before we started that this was going to take two different tracks. It's what the SBE can do for you and where the SBE could improve with respect to what you need. So this is your chance to give the feedback, and we're recording everything. So he'll have a written record, a verbal, video, whatever record to work from. So there you go. Do I promise we'll do it all? No, I don't promise we'll do anything. But absolutely, if we don't know, we can't try. By the same token, completion of a Nautel webinar does qualify for half of a recertification credit under Schedule I or Category I of the research schedule. So make sure you jot it down in whatever you keep track of that stuff on, whether it's a notepad or I used to speak English, but not today. Excel spreadsheet, whatever. In the line of being interactive, there's a little hand raise icon. If you click on that, assuming you're not Alex, I might unmute you and make you part of the conversation.
Gonna point that out.
Sorry, Alex, I had to say it. I couldn't resist. But no, even if you are Alex, and especially if you're Alex. So I see Alex in the audience, and I just had to give him some grief. So that's what we're going on now. The SBE is a fairly large organization. Do you have a guess how many members, Kevin?
You are, as the secretary, you would think I would know that off the top of my head, and I could probably tell you in just a moment.
You didn't know there was going to be a test.
Yeah. Let me see. Give me a minute. I will find that out.
All right. Well, we'll saunter back to that. So let's see. Elaine's already got a question on SBE membership in general. How many engineers out there?
I have that. It's over 4,300.
4,300. There you go. So here's a question from Elaine. How many engineers out there are not members? And I mean, that's a really hard question to quantify.
It is. I mean, to me, the way I see it too is there's a lot of people that are doing the work of what has been a traditional broadcast engineer these days that are on a different medium. So those are YouTubers, podcasters, houses of worship, things like that. I mean, if you go to any church these days, especially the bigger ones, I mean, my goodness, the production control rooms they have rival a network control room. So these are all people that are definitely in the tent. They are doing the work that traditional members have done. They may or may not be members, but they certainly would qualify to be a member, and they certainly would. I would encourage those folks to, embrace a lot of the opportunities that the SBE offers.
Right. Now, Alex had asked if that 4,000 odd number was active or total ever. And since my membership number is 26362 or 26,000 and change, I'm guessing it's active.
Yeah, those are active memberships. Yeah, we've had historically a lot of engineers come and go, a lot of members.
Yeah. Well, and that comes back to a whole different conversation about the graying of the industry, which kind of is why this came up as a topic for me, because and Ed, plug your ears. If John White ever watching the archive, plug your ears. But Gates Air is doing a broadcast for the IT-oriented in-house session in Quincy with hands-on stuff. And it's really cool because this is a course we've been doing at the SBE. Me and Gary Cavell, I think we're doing the 4th version of it, or 4th episode is next Thursday, I believe. And actually, we'll have Jeff Mendenhall on for that one. So, yeah.
Jeff, did nobody tell you you're not supposed to praise the competition?
Look, I'm here to tell you, if somebody's doing something that needs to be done, I'm going to call it what it is. And I think it's a really good thing that they're doing. So, yeah, I'd like to see more of that. Let's see. So, SBE membership. And by the way, folks, Kevin hasn't seen this slide deck, so this is going to be all new to him too.
I love that. That's nice.
I did warn you. But so that's one of the things we're going to cover is what the SBE can offer. And like I said, the other thing is let us know what the SBE could be doing, I guess, that would give more benefit to you. Like I know Alex and I have had a lot of conversations about the level of IT training. As one example. So, that's the kind of thing that's useful input. And I mean, I kind of got, I ended up on the board this year. I'm not quite sure how but thank you all.
You're such a lovable person, that's all.
That's where 5 people chime in and say, I didn't vote for you. And that's fine too. But anyway, I've also been on the education committee. So a lot of this kind of feedback is what we use to tailor what the education committee does. All right. So there is membership. And like I said, the SBE, when was the website redesigned, Kevin? It was just a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, we launched that, I believe, back in either 2020 or 2021. It's been recently.
Yeah. And one of the, I don't know if gripe's the right word. One of the points I make frequently is that we do have, tactful way to put it, some old ideas. And it's like as an example, the membership form just recently graduated to a fillable PDF instead of something you had to print out and write by hand. So it's cool to see that happening. Some of it, maybe we'll get some young person with a little bit of energy to turn it into a completely online fillable. I think it might be now the renewal, but that sort of thing. So there are a lot of things we'll talk about there. One of the big things that I think that is huge that a lot of members may not know about is the resource director page, and we'll get to that as well. Talking about like if you need to find a contract engineer or a consulting engineer, or a job at some point, so that kind of thing. And now talking about membership, there are different levels of membership too. And just because somebody's a young person that isn't like fully working in broadcast engineering, there are some options, right, Kevin?
Yeah, there are a few different options, and a lot of people, you're showing off the student membership, which people can take advantage of. Like, for instance, at our facility, we hire students to be work in our master control, and they can join the SBE as a student member and get access to a lot of the benefits that the SBE offers. There's also lifetime membership too, which I don't know if you highlighted that too, but once you reach a certain point, you can basically not have to renew your membership, and you are good to go for the remainder of your career and or life, or however long you want it to be. Right. But there are different membership options as well.
And one of the ones that I really wanted to touch on was Member Plus. The SBE webinars tend to be pay-per-view, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, but they're done on a subscription. If you want to watch a webinar, you log in, you pay the bill, you get the confirmation, and you watch the webinar. If you're a Member Plus member, all the webinars or all the media, I think it's all the recorded media on the SBE website is accessible at any time. So that, and what's the Member Plus was $175, is that right?
Boy, you really are just quizzing me here. Give me 1 second.
So I was teasing Kevin before we started. He's been on the board of directors as a director. He's been the secretary. He's the treasurer now. He's the vice president elect. So, you know,
175 is the answer. It's 175 for membership plus the Member Plus.
There you go. Yeah. So the good thing is we'll be doing this for an SBE chapter in about half an hour after this session ends. So you'll know all the answers for that one. But I'll be asking different questions then.
Cool.
All right. So Member Plus does have that benefit. And I mean, that on its own, if you watch 2 webinars, then you've paid for the difference between Member Plus and regular membership. So
yeah, and we're doing regular webinars as well. This is something we are producing on a regular basis. So you'll be able to see new ones that are coming out as well as access the archive. So if there's something specific you want, then by all means, there's a lot of resources available to you to watch webinars, and they're all fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I'm not saying that just because I happen to have done 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, and I was going to say I've done 1 too. Maybe skip that one.
Yeah, there you go. And yeah, if you see my face up there, just assume that you can find it in TTT, but maybe not. Chapters is the other thing. Chapters, depending where you are, that might be a bigger challenge. Like I see Marco's in here, and Marco, we just started a virtual Canadian chapter covering the entire country for what that's worth. So that's the meeting we'll be having next. And I don't remember if you were on the email list for that. So there you go. Reach out. So definitely, if you need to find a chapter, reach out to me, reach out to Kevin, or hit the website and see what's available. Sometimes they've also started the, what do they call it? Members on the web, the virtual SBE meetings.
Oh, so there are some chapters that have done either virtual meetings or hybrid meetings where they have people in person and people can join remotely. And chapters like New York will invite anybody. So they'll post the link to the SBE chapters Facebook page, and anybody can attend from any chapter. And I know there's a lot of other SBE meetings that will do the same, that they're not going to say no to a Floridian showing up to California or something like that. But, you know, it really depends on the chapter.
Right. And a lot of times, like if you hit Facebook, you can find a chapter's Facebook page, or they'll have their own website, and you can, you know, usually log in and get on their mailer that way as well. And I know, like for those of us in sales, I typically follow a lot of chapters in my territory and a lot of ones out of it that I've been asked to present to. So that's kind of a cool thing. If you're thinking about starting in a chapter, like the North Dakota as an example, doesn't have an SBE chapter. A lot of folks out in Fargo and Bismarck and Minot, and you know, you're all about a 2-hour drive from each other ish.
Yeah,
So,
and I know a common thing too is even if you do have a chapter, they may not be as active as other chapters and meeting monthly or however often they're doing. And sometimes it's just because of either a lack of interest or a lack of time on behalf of the people that run the chapters. So if there's something you would like to get involved with, I think there would not be anybody who would dissuade you from participating in your local chapter. As a matter of fact, when I moved to Madison, and in 2008 and attended my first SBE meeting, they're like, cool, fresh blood. Hey, you're an officer now.
yeah.
You know, and of course you could say no, but I know a lot of chapters will be happy to embrace anybody new and anybody who wants to participate. They won't discourage that and would love, I'm sure, the help.
Yeah. And I mean, it's absolutely, it's like anything else, it's as good as you make it. I mean,
Exactly.
ultimately, the members are the ones that determine what the chapter does or doesn't do. Let's see, the web extras mentioned there. Let's just flip ahead a notch. And so this was the one I was talking about with finding a chapter near you. Like you can go look at North Dakota and see what's available there. You know, so and I mean, I know I picked North Dakota on purpose because I can tell you there's nothing available there, but you got Minneapolis to the east. I think Montana's got one, although that's quite a haul to the west. And there was one in Iowa. I'm not sure how active, but again, you know, that is something that it's kind of up to us to determine. The good thing is with virtual sessions, it gets a whole lot easier. And slowly it's evolved so you can get credit for attending virtual sessions where it didn't used to be that you could.
Correct.
So
And there's still opportunities too if you because one of the big advantages, at least that I've always had to having the local meetings and meeting people in your area, is the ability to network. And even if that doesn't happen, there's still the ability to network. We're very present at the NAB show, and we've got our national meeting that's coming up in September. And anybody who is a member, anybody who who has interest in the SBE is certainly invited to participate in those things.
yeah. And that's the other thing to remember. You don't have to be an SBE member to go to a meeting. You know, I mean, now if you're going to go every single meeting over and over and over, then maybe it'd be a good
Yes.
idea. But again, find the value in it. So that, and speaking of value, and this came back as one of the questions Joe had asked, and I knew this was coming up, so I didn't answer it then. But what's the process of recertification? And the short answer is that if you're certified and it's current certification, then basically you fill out you click on the recertification tab and it'll bring you to a spreadsheet, not a list that says how many of these have you done, how many of these have you done, and it's a big long 7-page form. And you know,
Yeah.
it's if you're moderately active in the industry, go to a few meetings, maybe a trade show here and there, or write an article every now and again. It's really not that difficult. Like I said, attending these webinars.
Yeah, it really isn't. Now, of course, the recertification points are across a number of different sectors. So yes, attending meetings is one. And like for me, I have two different certifications, and every time my
I gotta,
recertification comes up, it's like I don't even have to really try. I'm thinking
yeah,
like
since I'm since
two
I'm
different.
just showing the screen and not the hardcore slide deck, I'm going to open
Right.
up the browser,
So,
flip over
so
to it.
for my certifications, it's like as long as you are actively employed, so long as you are, if you have attended SBE meetings, if you have attended a conference, perhaps, and it can be a regional conference, it can be on behalf of a vendor or a seminar or something like that. There's all kinds of ways that you can qualify in different categories.
Right.
But for the vast majority of people, as long as you said it best, you're even semi-active, it should be no problem for you to get recertified.
Right. So if you're doing it on credits, here are the categories, and you just basically, like I said, you just list everything. And I mean, it's everything from, let's see, leadership development course, employment, just being employed in the industry qualifies you.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's beneficial. Let's see, presenting a paper at a national conference or a regional conference. And I mean, you'll fill in what you've done, and the certification committee will assign based on a sliding scale the point value to it. And that's ultimately, then they'll come back and say, yeah, you're recertified, or no, you're a little shy. So I don't
Well,
think
you
I've
would
only had to
know.
research.
You would
Sorry,
know
what?
if you qualify just by filling out these forms. All the certification committee will do then is just review to make sure all that's accurate.
Yep.
So as long as it looks correct on that form, you shouldn't have any issues.
Right. And I mean, it's one of those, if you do a lot, like I tend to do a lot of presentations. Great thing I've got going for me is a lot of my presentations are SBE Ennis. So it's like I fill in presented for SBE Ennis. You tell me when, because you've got the records and I don't, you know. But yeah, so there are several things there. Marco's asking at the car that was up on Facebook. I think it's a Maserati, but friend's doctor owns a Maserati, which tells you all you need to know about pay-as-you-go healthcare. But anyway, time to get out of that. So definitely not my car. And yes, sorry, McLaren. Thank you, Alex. What I know about cars, you could put on the thumbnail. Let's see. Recertification, scrolling down through the notes. Williams qualifying, yeah, gearing up, have to go through the notes. And that's the big challenge. One thing I found with respect to recertification is that I tend to take this little form, and I mean, I've got an Adobe subscription. It's like $15 a month. So I can save this on my laptop, keep it live, and update it on the fly as I go. Because, yeah, trying to fill it up 2 weeks before the 5-year deadline to get your recertification submitted, that's stressful, and so absolutely, if you can sort of keep a running tab somewhere, and again, whether you use this, whether you use a spreadsheet, whether you're old school and scribble it down in a notebook like I tend to do, but definitely keep track of this stuff. All right, back to there. Let's see. Also, Elijah had a question from and I don't know the answer to this. Talk a little bit about the insurance benefit of SBE membership. And I know that there's like group insurance provided to SBE members at some discounted rate.
To be honest, I don't think we do that anymore. We
Still
did.
on the website.
Yeah, we used to have that service, and I remember that was up until I think it's been several years now, but I don't think we do that anymore.
All right. So, and I mean, I don't think from a technical perspective, like with respect to, for example, errors and omissions or insurance or anything like that, I don't think being SBE certified would have a lot of impact there.
No, it wouldn't. And okay, if that's the angle we're going for, no, we don't offer like a liability insurance on behalf of contractors or anything like that. We used to have I believe a health insurance program or something like that, and I don't think, and we haven't had that in a while.
Now, William mentions, and see, this is because the SBE website was totally revamped a couple of years ago. I'm still learning stuff on it because it's, of course, not like the Nautel website where I spend 6 hours a day on it. So this one's go to the SBE website, log in, click on account info. You see your contact info is listed. You can now upload a profile pic and a link to your social media. Oh, there, see, that's your turf there, Kevin. And there's a link to track recertification points. So now they've got an online tracker apparently, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So that is a good thing to know. Is there group insurance for local SBE chapters? So
for you're talking the health insurance again? No, not that I'm aware of.
No. And I mean, I guess a local chapter theoretically could do it if they wanted to, but that would probably tend to require a bigger membership than most chapters have.
Right.
Liability for using a location for a meeting.
Oh, that would be, so the issue is every chapter technically has to be incorporated, and the SBE can help with that. So like for instance, our SBE chapter 90 is its own entity here based in Fort Myers, and we have our own bank account, and the national office will help you set all this up and get you incorporated, but each individual chapter is individually organized.
Mm-hmm. And so that brings up another question, and Marcos mentioned this for the Canadians in the room. So there's in Canada, we've got the Canadian Council of Broadcast Engineers, CCBE, and I may have gotten that wrong, but I think it's right. And the Western Western Association of Broadcast Engineers, WABE. I remember the acronyms, but not what they stand for. But anyway, two different broadcast engineering groups. Are they tied to the SBE in any way that you know of?
No.
Like, So,
we would welcome the opportunity to work together, no doubt, but there is no.
well, and I know as an example, Wabi for their conference in November in Vancouver, I know Kathy's putting together an Ennis session for that right now.
Yeah.
So, there's no official relationship at all, and I mean, but it would be, yeah. There's no reason why they couldn't be, I guess, cooperative. That
Sure.
I don't think they're combative in any way, but yeah. So
And
that's
we've got, and we're doing international chapters too. Matter of fact, that's something we're doing here shortly. Is we set up one recently. We opened a new chapter in collaboration with an international organization in Georgia, the country. So that's been
okay.
a fun project.
I had to look up WABI, Western Association of Broadcast Engineers. So, yeah, and I mean, I know Alex mentions international trade laws aside, and I don't think there's a lot of business conducted between the two that would necessarily require that. But yeah, let's see. So that was useful. Now, the other thing about certifications is a lot of them are, as I mentioned, you're being employed as a one of your requalification points. So level years of service. Or like I can't, if I've only been in the industry 5 years, I can't get a senior radio engineer certification, CSRE. So that's another good thing to remember. And like CPBE, I've been at Nautel 33 years, so technically I kind of sort of qualify for that. I mean, as much as I know anything about the industry, but I'd have to do the CSRE first before I can get the CPBE. So there is a sequence to it. And yeah, so CCBE is Central Canada Broadcast Engineers. Marco looked that one up. So Alex, what's the benefit? Alex, I'm going to unmute you because I have no idea what you're talking about there.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. All right, so Alex, you are now unmuted and I see you're green. Say hello.
Hi, can you hear me now?
You're loud and clear. So
I
the
believe you're supposed to say
question.
caller, you're on the air.
Oh, you're on the air. No, hold on, I gotta screen you first.
I already
No,
knew it was
the
you. I knew
question-
what I was getting to when I unmuted you.
I've
So-
always played devil's advocate against the SBE.
Right.
Just
No,
because
I mean,
of
that's why I saw you in there, and it's like, oh, we're going to keep Kevin on his toes. So, you
And Kevin and I
talking
have had
about,
this discussion many times, but if you're talking about international agreements between SBE and Canada, and the organizations having some kind of cooperation working group, but because of the trade laws, like Canadians can come to the US and work willy-nilly, but US citizens can't go to Canada because there's Canadians that can do the job. So what's the benefit to the membership by doing so?
you're 100% wrong on that anyway, because Canadians can't come to the US and work willy-nilly.
Well, there's the trade thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so if you're a doctor or a lawyer or a professional engineer, you can come to the US and work willy-nilly, but you can also come to Canada and work willy-nilly too. Actually, if you're a doctor, we'd love to have you come on up. We could use a few more. So where this becomes beneficial is more from a sharing engineering and education resources. And I think I'd emphasize the education more than anything, but of course I would.
All right, and as to Kevin's point, also, working with someone like the country of Georgia, which has a different climate, different political issues, different everythings, or South Africa, for instance, way different to the UK. We're reaching out to those organizations, having more of a global footprint in education, because you only know your own backyard, right?
Right. Well, and that's kind of like one of the things, like if we look at the SBE as a whole, it's geared, there's a lot of EAS and FCC stuff.
That doesn't apply to a lot of the world.
Right. So yeah, that.
But a lot of the fundamentals though do, and that's why I reference this partnership we've had with I'm going to get this exact. I'm going to look this up. The IEEBE, which is this organization in Georgia that they were their own entity, and they basically wanted to partner with the SBE to use a lot of the training materials, which, RF in the States is RF anywhere else in the world. So that's a lot of what their function is. And even the studio technology is a lot of the same. So that's one of the drivers they're looking at and they're focusing on, even if there's some US regulation, they can weed that out.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that's the big thing from my perspective, is looking at it as sharing education more than anything.
Right.
Exactly.
But if we're boiling it down to the fundamentals, like we're not going to do, but DAB, for instance, not applicable in the US, but very applicable everywhere else.
Right.
So what's the return to SBE for that partnership?
Well,
If we're just talking fundamentals, AM and FM.
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Again, I'm just looking at it as these are the organizations that have already reached out to us. We didn't go to them. They came, in this case, again, I just cite this because this is a recent example. They came to us and wanted to work with us. So they're getting out of it what they want to get out of it. That wasn't something we were actively seeking. So I can't tell you that international domination is part of our formal agenda, but if it
should
you know,
be,
if there are organizations that want to work with us, we are more than happy to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those too, like I say, I think anyway, embarking on a pretty decent period of quote unquote modernization. So, how much do you want to bite off at once? As if you start multitasking that way, you do a bunch of stuff poorly. So I like the concept of picking a few things and focusing hard on those. But yeah, no, that's a really good point, Alex. Thanks.
Mhm.
That's where I mute Alex again for a moment so we can carry on.
We never
We'll
get
mute him
any.
again. Well, no, because Alex is the one that keeps us on our toes, and it was a good lead into exactly where we were going next with this, was the ability to share education. And I mean, if a bunch of folks in another country can get Member Plus memberships and have access to education that they don't necessarily have in their own neck of the woods, then that's beneficial. And I mean, I'm not like again with Wabi. I mean, they got SBE and doing an NS session. It's a easy way to put together a technical program for a regional conference. So even like state organizations. I know Michigan has done it before. I've done Georgia several times with NS. Just came back from doing one in Omaha. I had to think about that for a little while. Now, meanwhile, Kathy, she's going to see the archive and she's going to yell at me and go, "No, it wasn't Omaha. It was over here." But and we did one in Nashville too. So that might have been the one. There's been a lot of trips. But so the NS are huge. The one that I think we don't, and I don't see, haven't looked to see if Gary Murrill is on the line. So he's the chair of the education committee, and this is kind of his baby, but the technical professional training program. It's kind of cool because it gives you, and I go figure, I cut it off right. There are 4 elements that combine, and it's like I forgot to include them. Member Plus membership, SBE engineering handbook. What are the other 2, Kevin? Mentorship.
Yeah, hang on. See, again, you're quizzing me with these things off the top of my head. The TP.
And that's the one I should know, and you wouldn't necessarily need to because I'm on the education committee.
Yeah, you'd have to give me a minute to get you an exact answer. I'm looking this up. So, the SBE certification, webinars, the broadcast engineering handbook, and the SBE mentor program.
That was it, the certification. So you come out of TPT year course with a CBT. So, or what do they call it? The basic certification. So entry level. But again, the mentorship program is also something. I should have grabbed Chris Tarr for this too. It's something that's kind of cool, and I'll touch on that in a bit.
Yeah, we've had a lot of interest and a lot of success, I know, with the mentorship program. That's been a wonderful thing to have in the organization. And Chris has done a lot of work with it, and he's done a great job.
And I'm going to give a shout out to Kathy Oros, is the education director back in Indy. And Kathy does a pile of stuff with the Ennis workshops. And I mean, she's going to all of them, coordinating everything, making sure everybody's fed and looked after. And then gets her certificate at the end, and she herds the cats who are the vendor presenters. So, but she keeps us all in line, make sure we stay on topic and on time. And so, just a little shout out there. And I say you'll see her all over at the Ennis things. William's asking if the SBE has any involvement with ABIP, with ABIP, the Alternative Broadcast Inspection Program.
Oh, that's something that we hope to have some news on. So the answer is no, we don't participate in the ABIP program, but there is some work to basically present, and I don't think I'm speaking too far ahead here, but there's been kind of some talk about basically revamping what was the self-inspection checklist. And that's something we should be having out. We should be able to have more news about here shortly, that basically what was the self-inspection checklist that the FCC kind of abandoned, the SBE is picking up, and that we should have some news on that here fairly shortly.
And I mean, that's just a good thing in general to have regardless. I mean, I know I've over the years helped our team develop AM and FM site. Like you walk into a transmitter site and a little checklist of, is this ground here? Is there a surge protector? Well, the ferrite's installed. The little things you expect to have to ask about. But yeah, I'm a big fan of, make a list and check it twice, no matter what you're talking about. Let's see, is there a school with an engineering program? Can SBE connect with that? And Elijah, that is a really good question. And that is something else that is on the topic of the Education Committee and has been. Actually, that's how I got, sucked into the I got invited to a meeting to present a discussion on that, and just kept coming back. So they kind of got stuck with me in that regard. But Bates Technical College in Oregon has a engineering level, broadcast level program. UIndy, as part of their mass comm program, has something. And there are a lot of going back to Alex's backyard, KVSC, St. Cloud State. They teach engineering sort of as a side, but not as a formal course. And I think there are a lot of schools that do that, like that have a college radio or a TV station, and you learn engineering by doing it, under the tutelage of somebody who knows what they're doing, but it's not a formal course.
Yeah, there isn't really a formal program, I think, like there used to be. But if you kind of look at a lot of the materials, you'll see there's a lot of opportunities to kind of start from zero within the organization. We are doing, like, for instance, we've done the RF 101 series in the past. We did an Ennis conference back in Vegas back in April that, if you are starting from nothing, if you have no real understanding or you're fairly new to it, here's some of the fundamentals that you need to be aware of. So there's opportunities to kind of to kind of build up, even if it's not a formal program. There are opportunities within the SBE to not only get some education on your own, but then also that's the advantage if you have a local chapter nearby that you can then go to meetings and start meeting people and potentially get, I don't know if anybody offers formal apprenticeships, but if you're a student, you could get an internship. You could, from there, become an assistant. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would train you if you have even a semblance of interest. You could get jobs that way. So there's opportunities to get in if it's a path that you want to take, even if there isn't a formal program per se.
Right. Now, and I mean, I know Elijah is down in the Delta, and I mean, Jackson, Mississippi is their closest SBE chapter, and it's been off and on for quite a while. So, but yeah, there are Arkansas, Little Rock started going. So again, things kind of come and go a little bit. There is some stuff in the works on that, but it's way too early to commit to anything at all. It's at this point just a series of semi-connected ideas that we're trying to make some sense out of. So look for stuff, but not right away. So we talked about the mentor program, and the mentor program, especially, like if I look down the list of attendees here, I mean, I see somebody in Rockford, Illinois that probably knows more about tube transmitters than I ever will. Actually, I see several people on the list that know way more about tube transmitters than I ever will. I see a couple of folks on the list that know just as much, if not more, about solid state transmitters, including some of our own. I see automation people. I see people who know different things really, really, really well. And the reason I bring this up, because one of the things that the mentor program did introduce, and I think Chris was kind of behind this, was subject matter experts. And it's just a way of putting your money where your mouth is, Alex. But it's like I said, I don't know enough about broadcast from the microphone to the top of the tower to qualify, in my mind, as a mentor. But if you get out to the transmitter site on that end of the STL, I know a little bit about a few things. So it was an example this morning. I put my money where my mouth was and filled out the form. So it will be emailed to Kathy afterward. Oh, by the way, you can actually submit this stuff electronically now too. So that's way cool. But it's a matter of, you can pick exactly what topics to be a subject matter expert, and that just makes you a resource. So and you're not getting called by willy-nilly every time, to do that. But the mentor, if the mentee has a question and the mentor can't answer it, then they'll look for the subject matter expert list to say who knows a little bit more about this stuff. It's like I said when we started, find people smarter than you.
For sure. And that's, what's nice about the going to the meetings, if you do have a local meeting that is accessible to you, is there's always a variety of people that are there. You have folks that, can work on the old RCA transmitters from 1975, and you have the people that are automation experts, that are audio over IP experts, that you have folks that can chip cameras better than anybody and set lighting in TV studios and things like that. So it's nice to be able to pick the brains of everybody in the room, because you always kind of figure out there's somebody smarter at this than you are. And it's nice to be able to pick their brains on that.
Right. And this is
That's not discouraging the mentorship program, by the way.
No. But this is the really good way to get highly focused advice too. I mean, if you ask a question on a broadcast engineering group in Facebook, you're going to get 50 answers, and 5 of them might be germane to the actual question. So,
lots of jokes. Why do you need to do that?
Yeah. Or that'll buff out.
Yeah.
That's become the tagline for just about every engineering page. If you put up something that's incinerated beyond belief. But.
Yeah, and don't forget to post the microwave with the acorns falling out of it for the 107,000th time.
Yep. So I mean, that is something else that for the folks on the list that I see that do have some pretty specific knowledge in certain areas, like for me, and you can get as granular as you want. I mean, I put down, I'll talk about lightning protection and transmitter site grounding and solid state transmitters, and I'll specify it solid state. You ask me about glass FETs or glowing technology, I'm not going to be the guy to talk to about that stuff. So that was kind of cool. One of the other things, and this one definitely applies to the U.S. primary, well, pretty much totally, because it is specific to your part of the world, but frequency coordination is something else that different areas have better or worse luck with it, but it is a service that can be offered.
Well, actually, that's actually been revived in the last couple of years because of the Allian project. And here's the fun fact: frequency coordination is a paid position. There is stipends that are issued to those frequency coordinators that are working with us. We had to go through and update that list back a few years ago, but that was part of this Allian project that the SBE does, which is doing frequency coordination on behalf of the Department of Defense. So it became a big project that we took on, and so it. While there was a lot of frequency coordinators that were kind of sitting on their hands, this actually provided some opportunity for them to get involved and make a few extra bucks.
Yeah. And I mean, it is an accredited program. You actually do have to take the certification
Yes.
course to be, you can't just hang up your shingle and say, hey, I'm a coordinator now.
Right.
So there is a level of control over it too. And again, up here, I don't believe and I just don't know what we've got up here to do that in this part of the world. But in the US, the SBE is a good resource for that. Speaking of resources, there are several other things, and I've got, I mentioned the TPT, we talked about the consulting engineer directories. Resume service, it's funny. So we're hiring for several positions, and I had a guy reach out to me with an interest in one, and I said, well, shoot me a resume. And so he got it done, and he sends it to me, and he goes, man, it's been a long time since I had to figure out how to create one of these. So that resume service is something that caught my eye. Do you have any idea how active it is, Kevin?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The resume service.
Oh, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you.
Okay, I had to hit you with something that you couldn't
Yeah.
look up.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
So now I'm looking. Somebody turned the subtitles on, and I'm going to blame Ed for that. But that there, I've got something to distract me for the rest of the day now. Either that or I hit the subtitle. Oh, look, I hit the subtitle button. There you go. Too many buttons, not enough brain cells, but it actually works pretty well. It even handles Canadian. Oh, and it autocorrects. That's so cool. Okay. Anyway, one of the other things, yeah. One of the other things that was really interesting was the bookstore. And it's not limited to SBE books like the engineering handbook, but like that audio over IP handbook, I've got that. And I mean, I put it up just to give you an example of the what it would cost as an SBE member. So you get some pretty good discounts for being an SBE member. And Kevin's just sitting there going, okay, there's nothing I need to add to that.
No, you're selling them well. There's actually a lot of great books that are in there. Matter of fact, I've bought, I believe, the engineering handbook back a few years ago, and some of these, I'm not going to say all of them, but some of them you can break in with you for certifications. They are allowed to a certain extent, so those are just things to keep in mind.
Right. One of the things Alex has asked here, and I'm going to turn off the subtitles just because that'll drive me absolutely nuts. Or I am not. I thought I was, but there, I got it. All right. Alex has asked if the education has any plans to think, and so let's see, does SBE education have any plans or thinking about teach the teacher classes for the mentors, maybe a tie to the leadership stuff? And that's a good question. Now, one of the things when you sign up to be a mentor or even a subject matter expert, they ask what level of skill you've got in teaching and public speaking that would help you, explain the thought. Because you've got a good point. You can know something inside out, upside down, and backwards, but if you're unable to communicate that, that can be a challenge. So, Kevin, what thoughts do you have on that?
That's a good point. Like you said, I don't have a whole lot to add other than I think, part of it too is we're all human. We all have different levels of skill set. So, I mean, you're basing this off of what the person's background is, what their I guess what their resume looks like. So, there is, I think those people that are involved, that are accepted into these kinds of programs, are certainly people that are vetted to be able to speak on that. You're not just going to get some nobody who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
So yeah.
Now, the big challenge, and I mean, I've been speaking and teaching for a few years, and I mean, both my parents are teachers, and one of my sisters. Doesn't mean I'm all that, but the challenge sometimes becomes not so much knowing what you're talking about, but being able to explain it in a way that the person you're speaking to can understand.
Exactly right. And even still, you always get somebody who'll come up to you and say, hey, that detail that you said was wrong. And it's like,
yeah. Let's see. And Elijah had another question on the frequency coordination. Does it include STL frequencies as well? So like licensed band STLs?
No, those are typically handled by the professional, like comm searches and things like that. This is primarily for like wireless mics, for like if you're doing a lot of it was based on back in the day, like game day coverage. Like if you have an event that's happening in town, or you have a big press event and you need to coordinate frequencies amongst all the different agencies that are there, that's what this person does. They don't offer the STL coordination and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, and Alex mentioned he was going more for SBE to help find teachers to coach the mentors who don't communicate well. I like how he puts "we know who we are," so he's including himself in there, which is awful generous. But
Yeah,
cool.
well, and there's opportunity.
Good point.
I know, and there's opportunities for mentees to provide feedback. So, I mean, if there's somebody that's not cutting it for you, or you're not getting anything, by all means, please let us know.
Right. And I mean, we do that in almost everything. As an example, I mentioned earlier that Gary Cavell and I are working on the RF for the IT oriented course. And it's two modules, 4 sessions or 4 webinars each. And after the very first one, we got some feedback that I was all proud of myself. It's like, oh, we're teaching electronics, yay! And I got some feedback that said, you know, you need to slow your roll and actually paint us a picture. And it totally changed how we presented the second session. So yeah, the feedback is crucial. So that is a really good point. Let's see, there's also some legislative stuff here with the EAS, or the national test coming up in, when is that, October?
Yeah.
November?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's another thing that is going to be interesting.
I mean, the SB has always kind of been out there. There's a lot of the discussion we have about whether or not we get involved in legislative things is whether or not it's kind of a management issue, or it's a technical issue. You know, if the technology is settled and this is just a business decision, those are things that we tend to stay out of. But if there's things that address the technical nature of what we do, or if it's a void in some cases that needs to be filled, sometimes we can step in and help do that. That's where we were coming from with the checklist, is there's a void that needs to be filled. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that, you know, and I was chair of the government relations committee for a year or two. And, you know, there's a lot of things that people don't realize the SBE actually does advocate for. And we've seen this kind of slow and methodical eroding away of what has been traditional broadcast spectrum. And the the SBE has been advocating on behalf of broadcasters to help preserve a lot of what's been chipped away, or at least try and make rulings fair as possible to everybody involved. So there's a lot that happens, and things that the filings that we post, the sides that we take, are all available to be read, and you can certainly see them as part of the public record when it comes to FCC filings. So, you know, we do get out there and we are advocating on a regular basis. We've got our general counsels that we keep on retainer that, you know, are filing most recently with 13 gigahertz filings. And again, with a lot of these changes to particularly TV spectrum, to ENG spectrum, we've been on the leading edge of trying to preserve what some of the changes that have been coming, or at least make things fair.
Cool. Now, let's see, we are coming in at the top of the hour and getting near the end of the session, which coincidentally is a rare exception. But hey, it'll happen every now and again. So before we close down, I'm going to give everybody out there an opportunity, whether you do it as a hand raise or feedback in the questions, anything that you'd like to see the SBE do differently. And again, it's not a commitment or a guarantee that any of it will be acted on, but certainly if we don't know about it. And I'd say I'm going to unmute Alex again, just because I know you have an opinion or two on this topic, because we had a pretty spirited discussion in Madison one year about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll sum it up in 2 words: partnered curriculum. The SBE partnered curriculum. meaning that the SBE has a great thing for engineers, but it does very little in other things. Let's say like audio over IP or video over IP. SBE certifications mean nothing to an employer more than a Cisco certification does in that respect. So having a partnership with like Cisco Press as part of the curriculum, for instance, in that, so that it has a track into getting a Cisco certification as well as an SBE certification, or PeopleSoft for the people, the HR managers who need to find the engineers, so on and so forth. Getting partnered curriculum, I think, is you need to have a track to get elsewhere,
Right.
while also doing the SBE.
Cool. So
Yeah, so
in
you're
your
saying
mind-
like partnering with Cisco for those kinds of certification. That's what you mean.
Right, or Cisco, AWS, Microsoft, Azure, take your pick. We're all going into that game, right?
Right.
So having those abilities to take your SBE certification and dovetail that into an industry certification otherwise.
So the SBE certification wouldn't necessarily have to be the industry certification, but it would be sort of the lead in to that course.
Right, so you could use it to get, call up Cisco Press, and you can use, hey, I've got the CBRE or whatever, or the NT, and say, hey, I've got this one here. Does that get me a half a credit or a credit or two into getting a Cisco certification? Because they're going to ask a lot of the similar questions at the ground level.
Cool. I'm glad we're recording this because I am not going to try right now. Yeah, Joe's saying one less test to take.
Well, there's less tests and then less line items when you start listing out on your resume how many certifications you have.
Right.
They dovetail to each other and they help everybody when they can,
Yeah,
because you're taking the applicable stuff out of a Cisco certification that is applicable to this industry.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think, one of the big advantages too to just having a certification in general is, at least to a potential employer, is it demonstrates a willingness to invest into your job, that you have that kind of commitment, that you want to display your skills, and you want to show off your capabilities. And I think that's a marketable feature in and of itself, even if they don't understand what a CBRE is necessarily, but it at least shows you have a commitment to career advancement, a commitment to learning that is, I think, by a lot of employers viewed as a good thing. And we can demonstrate in the compensation analysis that people that are members, people that are certified, do earn more than people that aren't certified. And that isn't to say we shouldn't offer certifications that are meaningless. That's not at all what I'm saying.
Well, it's not so much the dead end factor of where do you go now? Does the incentive, when you take those tests, what do you do now? Because it is a dead end, because now you got a time limit. If you hit a certain point, now you got to wait 10 years to do your next one.
Sure.
So
and different people, and
you have these things, you should try looking at this industry certification from Microsoft or AWS.
Sure.
Yep.
Those kinds of things.
No, that's not a terrible thought at all. That's something to definitely bring up in 2 weeks when I'll be sitting in a room with a bunch of other like-minded people. One of the other things kind of cool on the certification, and I didn't really mention it on when we clicked past it, but on the resources tab, there's job postings. And when you go down the job postings, a lot of them will say certification a plus. And now a lot of that goes back to when it was a seller's market and there was one job posted and 20 engineers looking for work, as opposed to 20 jobs posted and one engineer looking for work. But yeah, I mean, if you got to choose between two people who are pretty much equal on paper and one of them's got a certification, the other one doesn't, you're going to lean toward the guy who's certified, typically. All right. Well, on that note, folks, we're right at the top of the hour, which is, like I said, nothing short of miraculous. I've tried as much as possible when we went through these on any of the pages from the SBE website, which was all of them, to include the reference, the link back. So when you look at the archive, you're able to copy those down and get there, or just go to sbe.org and start clicking away. That's how I found them all to begin with. One thing that is cool, and I'm going to Alt-Tab back to the SBE website really quickly, get off of that and onto there and go to the home page. If you do want to join the SBE, that little grayed out window in the top is where you would just highlight it and click it out. If you're renewing a membership, an existing one, same button right there. Once you've got your membership, you can log in, and from the login, you've got access to member search and a little more detail in the web listings and various other things. So just as a general rule of thumb. As I said, the online jobs, I kind of skipped over that and I didn't really mean to. But if you wanted to look at job openings, even as a non-member, you can see the abbreviated list. And then as a member, you get the full details on it. So, that's another beneficial thing. All right, so back to the wrapping it up. Lots of other resources. This webinar, as with all of our webinars, will be archived, and you'll be able to find it on our website as soon as Mr. Disembodied Voice gets it there, which will happen shortly after I send him the slide deck, which will happen shortly. So next day or so. Waves newsletter just had one come out. This one was a fun one. Had a situation where somebody was spending a little extra on repairs. Said it's a brand new site. I don't understand why it's costing us so much. So I was in the neighborhood and stopped by and wrote a trip report about it. And that became a Waves article. Actually, the Waves article will become the trip report when I finally get the paperwork done. So, that was kind of fun. And it's a good sort of a walkthrough of a transmitter site that well, I told somebody I don't think I've ever seen a perfect one. There's always something to improve. And, that's where this one was. Online info, Barry's BDR, the Facebook pages. As I said, you're going to get some chaff with the gems, but there's some pretty smart people out there, and it's just sometimes a challenge to find them. So on that note, Kevin Trueblood, I want to thank you very much for spending the last hour with me, and in a half an hour for spending the next hour with me.
Well, I think, by the way, is that a Hawaiian shirt you're wearing?
It is. And oh, wait, let's see if I can get up close enough to the camera. Probably not. It is a logoed Hawaiian shirt.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say for the next one, I'll join you with a Hawaiian shirt because I've got a few of them here.
Awesome. Well, there you go. We'll have a little bit of fun. And I mean, given that it's mid-September-ish, we're approaching fall in the Great White North. So
It's still
good
summer
idea.
here. It's still sunny and tropical in Florida.
Yeah, you'll get that for another month. We'll have snow. But on that note, folks, I want to thank you all very much. And Kevin, thank you again for being here today. And we will see you. Let's see. Have a MDCL webinar next week on Wednesday, the 20th, I believe. And then I believe I'm on the road for a bit. So I think we're wrapped up until October some point. And then we've got a couple of sessions there. So on that note, thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye now.